Very well. So now let's design this single unit flex prosthesis. The client asked us for a unilateral prosthesis. It's temporary, right? Remembering that it is meant to be temporary for the client is going to receive an implant. So for the patient not to be left without a tooth, whether immediate loading is possible or not, the client requests a prosthesis like this as a precaution, so the first step here, the software asks us to render the meshes, then it will do the calculation. The software's own artificial intelligence asks us to select the occlusal plane. This is practically automatic, okay? We don't need to worry about it. We select the working area, right? What is in green is what will be our working area, our main model. So all the excess we can trim here, especially the mesh defects. For the lower part, it's the same thing, selecting the important area, the occlusion, we select the actual area of interest and discard all the excess. The software generates a model with the bases for us. I don't need to make any changes because this region that will receive the prosthesis is already very well defined. There are no bubbles, no scanning defects. For the lower part, it's the same thing. We can see here that the model is well defined. And the next step, I tell the software where the midline is and where the occlusal plane is, so that the placement of the tooth, the single element here, is done exactly in the right position. Correct. So the software already knows where the points are. Now it asks me for the 5 most important anatomical points, which are the tuberosity, the canine points, and the incisive papilla point. So for the maxilla, the software needs these points as references for positioning the tooth. The next step is mesh generation, the part where we will design the base of the prosthesis. So the extensions, the thicknesses of the clasp, the heights of the clasp. I always tend to exaggerate a little in the design so that the prosthesis comes out a bit larger, and then with the burr, I delicately adjust it. I remove any excess or anything that needs to be removed. The software also asks me to find the insertion axis of this prosthesis. And then I ask that, in addition to this insertion, it also generates the relief areas for me so that this piece doesn't become extremely retentive. So it generates a digital wax up for me, which I'll show here clearly so you can see. It has already generated the relief areas. I like to work with a bit of the clasp, the active part of the clasp, always in the yellow areas here, which are the regions with a little more retention. So we bring the clasp down there, seeking retention. So the tooth is already in the correct position, following the alignment. If I want, I can stretch it out a little. I can make it a bit thicker compared to the other teeth, keeping it positioned and well aligned. I always check from the lingual side, the lingual contacts, and eliminate all the interferences or references I have. I always leave the tooth a little smaller with these boundaries very well outlined here now. My clasp for the posterior tooth, the little molar, I leave it. This one is circumferential. We select a circumferential clasp and the palatal limit, always ensuring comfort for the tongue, okay? We can't forget about that. So with the tooth well positioned, I select a medium type of gum. I don't make anything too aggressive, not a very aggressive sculpting, but I also don't leave it too smooth. So in the next step, the software generated the gum for me, and in the next step, this gum will be calculated. How will the software calculate the fabrication of this type of work? That is, how much of the base, how much of the tooth penetrates the base, how thick this base will be. So here I already have my base. I'm adjusting this posterior region, making sure the tooth is well surrounded here with our clasp so we don't run any risks of this clasp failing. So these red areas are the areas that the software is identifying as extremely thin, but we know that in the end, that's what the patient will tolerate. So I already have the boundaries of the prosthesis. If I want, I can thin this edge a little, making it more delicate so that the patient doesn't notice the prosthesis in their mouth as much. Here, the software will calculate, actually it has already calculated, the insertion of the tooth into the socket. For now, we don't have the socket. We only have the space here for the artificial tooth. So the software will ask me how much thickness I want, how much height I need for this tooth so that we achieve a perfect fit. Here we are seeing there are some specific areas where we are going to go back a bit in the project because the software identified some particular regions here that are very thin. So we are going to add a little bit more. And then automatically, the software trims these excesses for us, thus generating our flexible prosthesis. Now here we have the 3 files generated by the software, which are the flex base, already with the exact limit for the tooth insertion. We have the tooth. I can remove here the dental element that will be printed. And then we have what we call the monoblock. The monoblock is a prosthesis where it combines the tooth with the base, and we have the possibility of printing all of this together.